Welcome to our presentation of the Teacher and Free Speech Online. This presentation is by Candice Bailey, Tamara Kirkland, Abbie Perdue, Betsy Rycroft, and Cheryl Thompson. The Teacher and Free Speech Online is important because a lot of people think that free speech just has to do with your words, but it also has to do with your social media postings and some other things as well. So part of the issue is that we have to recognize as teacher what our rights are and how they must be balanced with our responsibilities as professionals. We do have the right to freedom of speech as teachers, but we also have some limits as well. Because we're held to a professional standard, we have to respect what we are doing online and what we are posting as well as what we are saying. Teachers need to realize that students and parents see us as role models, and so we have to make sure that we are abiding by that role in their lives. We need to exercise some caution when we use social media, other platforms, as well as our verbal speech. So acting within our rights as individuals is important. We also have to know what our rights are. We're considered public employees, and so because we are considered public employees, there are certain things that are attached to that make our speech limited in certain areas. So knowing what our rights and responsibilities are as employees does fall under the responsibility through the First Amendment and the freedom of speech. So knowing our rights is going to do several things for us. It's going to help us avoid problems, but also give us the freedoms that we desire to post what we like to about our lives. But there have been some cautionary tales of terminations or restrictions or resignations that have been forced by teachers in the past, investigations that have been started by them. And so we want to know what we can and can't do. One of the first important cases in history is Pickering versus Board of Education, which was decided by the Supreme Court in 1968. This was actually the case of a teacher who went before the Supreme Court because he had sent a letter to the editor of his school complaining about the fact that they were spending a lot of money on athletics as opposed to spending more of it on academics. And so he wrote a letter to the editor criticizing the school board for doing that. He lost his first two cases in the lower courts, but when the Supreme Court did it, they showed that he did not give up his First Amendment rights by becoming a government employee. So he may speak in the way that he did through a letter to the editor on a matter of public concern, even if that does say negative things about his employer. However, he was limited by not being able to say something that was reckless or knowingly untrue. So his right to speak was held in that particular case. The next case important in history for this was Connick versus Myers. And this is actually not a case about a teacher, but it applies to teachers because we are considered public employees. In this particular case, the Supreme Court acknowledged that we do need a balance between our freedom of speech and speaking openly against our employer. In this particular case, a government employee was fired because she was speaking poorly of her employer. She sent a survey to the different people in her office, and it was considered knowingly going against the best interest of her employer. And because that's the way she handled it, it was considered something that could be limited. So she was fired, and that was upheld by the Supreme Court because she was speaking against the employer, and it was not in the public interest. It wasn't a matter of public importance. And so in that case, the government or your employer, the school board, has the right to not have their workplace disrupted. So that's an area where we are limited in our speech.
So making sense of the legal aspects, what are the important elements of teachers' speech rights? And so piggybacking off of Cheryl, teachers don't necessarily give up their First Amendment rights by being teachers or a public employee, but we have to be considerate of how we speak and what we say. We can't just get online and just have a lot of careless talk, because if it does go against the school or it causes disruption of the workplace, they do have a right to take you to court, and you could possibly lose your job. So as long as what you say is just a matter of public opinion and you do not affect the learning environment, then you are okay. Teachers should recognize that they're considered employees that fall into the category of public employees. We just have to be careful of our speech and what we say. There are so many different platforms now where you can actually share your personal opinions, social media, t-shirts, blogs, etc., TikToks. So we just have to be really careful of what we say and be mindful if it's going to affect your school or work environment. Teachers need to educate themselves on their freedom of speech and the interests of their employers, especially school boards. It would be important for teachers to go back and do some research on cases like the Pickering versus Board of Education and the Connick versus Myers to see what your rights are and understand what your First Amendment rights are and your liabilities if you do talk against your employer. Teachers should be cautious when voicing personal or internal concerns, as speech not addressing public issues and disrupting school operations can justify disciplinary actions. So you just need to know your laws and make sure that you are speaking within those boundaries of the context of the laws. So implications for teachers. Without knowing or studying these landmark cases, teachers might believe that all their speech is protected, which is not true. So in order to know what your rights are, it's great to study these landmark cases so you can not be terminated or have any disciplinary action taken against you. For example, if a teacher publicly criticizes the administration on social media about internal issues or personal grievances, they could face consequences if such speech is deemed not to address matters of public concerns or it disrupts school operations. So just stay informed about case law and policies related to free speech in the educational context, and just be mindful of what you say and its impact on your school relationships and school operations. Legalities, case law. If you understand the Pickering and Connick, it helps you realize the limits of your First Amendment rights as public educators. Under statutory law, laws such as the Teacher Protection Act provide certain protections, but educators still need to be aware of their limits established by case law. The National Archives and Records Administration highlighted that the Teachers Protection Act encompasses protecting teachers from liability when they act within the parameters of their employment and follow certain federal, state, and local laws, including our civil rights. Common law is the understanding of public employees' rights to free speech and its limitations based on legal precedents established by the courts. So remember, generally a teacher's right to freedom of expression are protected. They are, however, subject to reasonable considerations regarding order, loyalty, professionalism, and overall impact on the operation of the school.
Legal issue against an educator. Rachel Dozaz was an elementary teacher in Arizona. She started teaching in the higher level of education, but then she got in trouble. She had some legal issues when she was teaching on the college level. So then she dropped down to the elementary level. And once she dropped down to the elementary level, she realized that she had a decrease in her pay. So she decided to find other means to be able to make money. So she decided to start an OnlyFans account. Well, when she started the OnlyFans account, someone spotted her OnlyFans account and they reported her to the school district and she wound up getting fired. The issue hasn't been brought to the court yet.
So when we are comparing the Diallo issue to Pickering versus Board of Education, the two cases are similar because both lost their jobs. So Diallo lost her job due to content on OnlyFans, and Pickering for criticizing the school board. Employers of both individuals expressed concerns about image and values, And both cases deal with freedom of speech and expression, a First Amendment right, and employer expectations. The difference in the two cases, the Pickering case was related to speech, and Diallo's issue was related to content posted online. Also, the Supreme Court made a ruling in the Pickering versus Board of Education case where Diallo's issue has not been brought to court. When we compare the Diallo issue to Connick versus Myers, the similarities are like the last case. They both lost their jobs, but this time Myers due to her internal questionnaire. And then employers of both individuals expressed concerns about image and values. The differences in those cases was the Myers case was related to internal workplace issues, and then Diallo's issue was related to content posted online. Again, the Supreme Court made a ruling in Connick versus Myers, while Diallo's issue has not been brought to court.
Missteps that led to Diallo losing her job. The first thing she did that I see that was wrong was the fact that she started the OnlyFans account without making sure that her school district allowed that type of social media from the start. The next thing was posting nude or sexual pictures online while working inside of an elementary school, because parents can see it. Nowadays, kids tend to get on things like that. Even though you have to be 18 years or older, they still find ways to get onto stuff. She was careless because even though she changed her name, she still linked it to her Instagram account. So people were still able to recognize her face even with the name change. What can we learn from the Diallo's issues? Educators just have to be mindful about posting things on social media because we're held at a higher standard than most people in their profession. Educators also should, before posting anything online, they should also check with their school district just to make sure that they're not going against any policy that the school has already put in place.
All right, code of ethics. Each of these cases align with professional conduct, which just says that when we are out in public, we're still representing our school. We still have to show dignity to the school district that we're in, as well as teachers in general. We do have freedom of speech, but we still have to be very careful in what we say because we are held to a higher standard. Kids look up to us, their parents look to us, and they hold us accountable for what we do. So that means that we do have a lasting impact on what we verbally say and what we may share on social media or just the way that we carry ourselves. So every post should be thoughtfully thought out to prevent misunderstandings or assumptions from students, parents, or somebody else from the school district. It could also be beneficial to refrain from posting about controversial topics that could lead to a bigger issue. So just kind of watching what you say and think about weighing the benefits. Is it really worth it to say this, or should I just kind of bite my tongue and let it roll? So that's our presentation. We thank you for watching it, and we hope you enjoyed it.